Hi friends, this is Sarah from Crafting and Relaxing, and this is my process video for Joy of Blue. Welcome. If you watch my channel, you know that my process videos are not super organized, and I'm trying to show you how I really craft. So what I did was I got two of these pieces of paper, 12 by 12, Paper House brand, and if you haven't seen the Joy of Blue video, I'll link to that below. You'll want to see it. And I copied Jess Crafts. She has a lovely template. She has a whole bunch of these one-sheet wonders, but she has this one that caught my eye. I'm having a little trouble because my giant Fiskars cutter that I desperately love, 6 inches is a tricky cut, and I didn't get it quite right. I guess 6 inches isn't a cut that I do a lot, so it hadn't caused me problems, but I worked through it. Then what I did was I just assembly lined them as quickly as I could. I didn't think too much about it. I didn't study the stuff. She said, use a non-directional pattern. I did, and I just went for it. Then you had to make a bunch of half-inch strips, which on some cutters is easier than others. You'll notice on the next piece of paper, I switched to my small ones. And my idea here was to use these beautiful blue papers, but also show you, see, I'm struggling. I'm trying to figure out where is 6 inches in that seam. That's one of the things about paper cutters, and that's why I have so many videos on them, is finding the one for you. I saved those branding strips. Those became very important because that's how I put cute little scraps on the inside of them. There were 4 pieces. I cut each one into 3 and had a nice little scrap inside each one of my cards. I talk about saving the branding strips, but when you're doing a one-sheet wonder, it's really important. And those are fun because the scale of the pattern is smaller on them, so they were a nice little accent. So here, I'm just doing those half-inch strips on my smaller cutter. Much easier. Go. Super fun. I really enjoyed the one-sheet wonder. When I got to the cardstock, which we're doing right now, I was a little stumped because she doesn't really show you a layout of it and say, this is what you should do. She just tells you the measurements and thinks, okay, use scraps, do whatever. You know, you should be smart enough to figure it out. So I'm going through all my different navies and trying to find one that I like with all the patterns of paper. And the dark navy floral doesn't work with some of mine. So I decided to cut enough for 6 cards, and then I paused and laid them out, and you'll see that. So all I'm doing is I'm counting the number of papers that she told us to cut and getting to 6 and putting them in piles. 6 cards. So the little tiny ones you have to cut like a million of. I think it's 12. It feels like a million when you're doing it. And I was trying to use up scraps out of my jar. You'll see that every once in a while I reach into my jar during this video, I think, when I'm looking for stuff, and I'll show you that. I don't throw strips of paper I like away. If it's, I don't know, a color or a pattern that I just can't stand, then I might ditch it. But other than that, I keep them. And if they're blue floral, I keep them even if they're like a ½ inch by an inch. So here, I just needed a couple more of those itty bitties, and then we're good. And like I said, I stopped at 6 because I wanted to lay them out with the papers, and then I thought I might change my background paper. I have a lot of this paper that I used, but I didn't have a lot of the Stampin' Up! Night of Navy, which I wanted to use. And then I'm experimenting because I can't do things the same, right? I'm twitching a little. So I went, okay, 3 of each, that'll work. And I'm experimenting. I've never used any of Jess's one-sheet wonders before, so it was a fun test for me. Then laying them all out. And I did bring in 3 different patterns, which is the fun of using more than one sheet. If you just want to make 6 cards really fast, you have 2 patterns and you're good. Then, being me, I had to do it. She uses the strips at the bottom are the same because she's just doing 2 sides of paper. I mixed mine up a little, and when I went to put my sentiments on, there were pros and cons of that. I like them. I had fun. They come together really quickly. I found her description and her directions to be really good. Here I'm trying to figure out, do I want to cut some more now? Am I going to assemble these cards? Which navy do I want to use? Maybe you don't have 4 navies in your stash, but I take my blues pretty seriously. This was from Tuesday morning, the one I chose, and it seemed to work pretty well. Then I just went through and taped them all. You'll see lots of process videos where people flip over a whole bunch of papers and take their ATG gun and go like the wind and put adhesive on all of them. I am a little messy and often have troubles if I put adhesive on the back of too many things. I end up with things stuck to each other and they get destroyed. So I very often go one at a time. When Jess makes her cards, she puts them in either envelopes or Ziploc bags and then assembles them watching TV. And that's what I was thinking, that Mr. Crafting and Relaxing was going to come in from the shop and say, hey, do you want to watch TV? So I put them in envelopes. I got them all ready. I knew I had enough white card bases, so I wasn't too worried about that. And I just thought it's nice to have a big flat surface to run your ATG gun and do all these little tiny bitties. And I don't know, I didn't really have should I put the whole card together? But I put them in envelopes because I knew I would mix up the pieces. And I wanted to have that all together. Also, I was kind of figuring out, does this work for me? Do I like it? Can I use it? Yes. You'll need to watch Jess's video to get the actual tutorial and the measurements. I do not want to take views from her. That's not my goal here. I just wanted to show you how a messy person might do this. Now, at this point, I'm starting to think, okay, I'm going to have all these cards the same, but people who don't make YouTube videos don't make 6 or 12 cards all the same, right? You need a birthday card. You need a thinking of you. You need a card for a dog lover or a cat lover. So I think one of the things I always want to show you is versatility. If you just think of these as blue backgrounds, you could have done with mixed media or any patterned paper, and you don't say, oh, well, I'm using this brand of embellishments or this color palette. You can make anything. So that's what I wanted to show you in this. That's why I end up with 12 different cards, even though it's a really repetitive, fast process. I mean, I had a great time. I think I just whipped these out and went, okay, I would do this again. And in fact, the more pieces of paper you cut up in the beginning, the more patterns you would have to mix and match. The only trick you have to watch is if you don't do a good job mixing and matching, you will end up with the same at the end. I think when I tried a one sheet wonder or the sheet load of cards, I wasn't paying attention and I ended up with papers at the end that were all the same, which isn't the end of the world, but it's not really the point. Okay, so here I'm just laying them out again, and I do have 3 patterns because of the one I mixed up on the last one. Some of my 1/2-inch strips are skimpy, and I knew that, and that's okay. Had to do with that whole 6-inch problem. So I just tried to put the skimpy ones on the same cards. Then I looked at those branding strips because they were perfect. Okay, I went away. I dug out a sticker sheet. You can see on the left, I had the Jolie's flowers, pink flowers sticker sheet. That's where I got those pink vellum. Now I'm stamping and I'm going to do some die cutting. I don't think I've ever used this doghouse stamp. I, of course, have pet hair in it, so you'll see me picking those out. I just looked around my room and went, what can I put with navy? Well, anything goes with navy. I had some things, like I had a bunch of Joy die cuts that already had navy, and it was too much. So then I started looking for other colors. That cat is adorable, that black cat die cut up there. But to use it, I would have put the card together differently because the eyes are looking up, so I would want them looking up at the sentiment. But it was really cute. I tried it. Then I'm stamping some dogs, and I'm going to put them on craft and gray because I don't want my cards to be the same. So you might say, well, the gray was cuter. Why didn't she use that? Because I just can't make 2 cards the same. And while I was stamping, I stamped a bunch of extra dogs just because I had it out. It was inky. the doghouse is too big to go in my sidekick, so I went away, cut that on my big die cutter. Then my apologies, I don't have the bright lights on because I have a contractor in the backyard and I'm trying to get Wilson to just settle in and chew on his calm. So we're crafting in semi-darkness, which isn't always ideal, but I just have the little light next to me on, the lamp. Those scraps came out of my jar, so no extra scraps of cardstock were generated. And that's one thing that Jess talks about in hers, is this is a great way to use up scraps of cardstock. Then that tiny little strip, that came out of my jar too. So when you think, oh, I'll never use this, it could be perfect for a sentiment one day. And those are just adorable. It was just the right size. I didn't have to trim it. I didn't have to get a scrap that size. I have a few Copic markers, not many. I thought the doghouse was a little white, so you see I did some shading on it. And the vellum butterfly on the Joy card came from the pink flower set. I hope that gave you great inspiration. Dig around. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.